Hi guys. In this lecture, I'm going to be talking about opposition. So we'd already discussed two kinds of opposition, the first two. Today we're going to be talking about what's left, which is the third and the fourth kind of opposition. So this is a continuation of lecture 9, right? Okay. So we were discussing opposition. We'd already discussed contradictories and contraries. The third one is subcontraries. So इसमें क्या हो रहा है? So इसमें you have particular propositions differing in quality, such that they cannot both be false, although they both may be true. This is uh, a kind of an inversion of contraries if you look at that, because what we had in that was universal propositions having differing in quality. So now we have particular propositions differing in quality. And the major difference is that in contraries, both could not be false, both could not be true, sorry, but both could be false, right? Isme jo hai, we are saying that both cannot be false, although they both may be true. So look at this example. If we have obviously the I on the O propositions would be subcontraries because isme I or O dono particular hai and differing in quality. One is affirmative and the other is negative. So some nations are democracies, some nations are not democracies. ठीक है? So इस केस को अगर आप देखें, so ये दोनों जो हैं, ये true हो सकते हैं. There are nations that are not democracies and there are nations that are democracies. लेकिन क्या ये दोनों false हो सकते हैं? नहीं हो सकते. फिर आपके पास फिर क्या बचता है पीछे? So you get the idea, right? So both can be true, but both cannot be false. And again we're going to be talking about कि अगर एक ऐसी proposition इसमें आ जाए जो कि necessarily false है. For example, अगर हम ये देख लें proposition, some squares are circles, ठीक है? But we know that this is necessarily false. So how do we get out of this problem? Like I said in the last lecture, I said कि we're going to be looking at contingent propositions only. Contingent propositions कौन सी होती हैं? That are neither necessarily true or nor necessarily false. Okay, so they're open in that sense. So that's the only way we can, the only sort of propositions I should say we will be using in opposition. Okay. So last one of the four is subalternation. So let's just quickly read the definition. The opposition between a universal proposition and its corresponding particular proposition is known as subalternation. So that's very simple. So you have two universal propositions in the four that we talked about, and corresponding to those two, we have obviously the particular propositions in terms of their quality, right? So the quality is unchanged, both affirming or denying. ठीक है, so अगर आपके पास e proposition है, so उसके सामने जो correspond करेगी वो अगर आप positive उसकी रखें उसको, obviously यही है वो कह रहे हैं, quantity differ कर रही है, quality जो है वो वही है. So a के सामने आपकी आ जाएगी I और e के सामने आ जाएगी O. ठीक है, ऐसे ही है ना? So अगर a proposition आप देखें, so let's just look at this example. All spiders are 8-legged animals. So this corresponds to some spiders are 8-legged animals. Obviously, we have the same subject and the same predicate terms. That was the condition we said कि opposition में होती है. Similarly, E and O propositions would be a case of subalternation. So no whales are fishes corresponds to some whales are not fishes, E and O. So the thing that you should remember is that obviously we're dealing with one universal proposition and one particular proposition in subalternation. So जो universal है उसको हम लोग कहते हैं superaltern और जो particular होएगी उसको हम कहते हैं subaltern. So अगर E जो है वो superaltern कहलाएगी और जो उसके corresponding particular होएगी यानी कि O वो हम कहेंगे subaltern. ठीक है, इसी तरह E would be superaltern and the O1 would be subaltern. Okay, so in classical logic, the subaltern implies the truth of the subaltern. This is interesting. So if we say that if all birds have feathers, then some birds also have feathers, right? So अगर आपके पास ये केस दिया हुआ है सबऑल्टर्नेशन का, अगर ई प्रोपोजिशन यानी कि अगर आपकी सुपर ऑल्टर्न जो इन अदर वर्ड्स अगर वो ट्रू है, so subaltern necessarily is also true. ठीक है? This is very interesting. So if I say if no whales are fishes, then obviously some whales are not fishes also, right? So अगर आपके पास no whales are fishes या आपके पास subaltern true है, तो subaltern भी true होएगा necessarily. This is something that you should remember, okay? But also remember that it doesn't work the other way around. So if you have, you can't go from subaltern to the superaltern. Superaltern से उसकी truth से आप subaltern तक आ सकते हैं, but subaltern की truth से या falsity से आप superaltern की तरफ नहीं जा सकते, ठीक है? Okay, so with that, we have, visually, this is what we've covered so far. So, अगर आप इसको देखो, this is something that you should remember, by the way, because आपके questions जो आएंगे उसके अंदर I'll be asking you. Uh, yeah, just a second, I'll tell you about that also. But first, let's just look at this figure. So this is a very important one because it covers everything. So you have A, E, I, O on the corners of this square. And then we know that A and E are contraries, A and O are contradictory, EI are contradictories, AI subalternation, EO subalternation, IO subcontrary. So you have everything here that you need to know. So अगर आप इसको याद कर लो, so it won't, like, you'll always remember. This is a very handy figure to, memorize or have. Lastly, this is the distinction that your book provides between immediate inferences and immediate inferences. So immediate कौन से होते हैं जो कि जिसमें कोई दो premises नहीं होते, यानी आप एक premise से दूसरे conclusion पे फौरन पहुंच सकते हैं. So if I say some animals are mammals, therefore some mammals are animals. Very basic, very simple. Immediate के अंदर वो cases हैं that we've talked about so far. So we have inference. We have inference in the sense that we have two propositions, two premises, and then the conclusion. So from one premise, we get to the other one, and then taking both of them, the conclusion follows. So that would be a kind of mediation. You can remember it like that. Like an immediate can there, you're just like going from straight 1 to 2, okay? The reason that I just mentioned this is square of opposition can there it's immediate. So you have A is given, either it's true or false, and then you can immediately figure out कि O क्या होएगा, ठीक है? So let's just think about this. अगर A जो है वो true है, so O क्या होगा? False होगा. अगर E true है, तो I क्या होगा? False होगा. Because क्यों होगा? Because हमने contradictories में बात की थी कि both cannot be true and both cannot be false. ठीक है? इसी तरह you can हर किसी के पास हमारे पास इसका है immediate inferences आप इसको कह सकते हैं. So अगर A is true, then we know E is false, I is true, O is false. ठीक है? How are we doing that? We're doing that by covering all that we did. ठीक है? So contraries का हमें पता है क्या होता है. Contraries में both cannot be true, but both can be false. Subcontraries में हमें पता है both cannot be false, but both can be true. So अगर वो सारे rules apply करें, so this is what you get. So for each of these propositions, आप इसका opposition से you can figure out the remaining or the rest of the three cases.